today we are talking about pacing in the marathon. And what I'm going to share with you here is the importance of pacing and then a little evaluation that you can do on a recent race that you've done. Careful. And that's where we blow up, because every runner feels like that. That's why every runner blows up. So if you go even slower at the beginning, you're actually conserving your glycogen so that you bonk later in the race. I'm going to share with you whatever your goal is, how to pace for that most mindfully. And this is going to be like somewhat simple, but if it's so simple, then why do so many runners mess it up? We are not talking about how to pace for dream that you have or anything like that, or based off of evaluating what you could run. This is going to be based off of if you have a goal time, which is up to you. Number one is that if you want to improve your marathon time, what's the fastest way to do it? Is it to train harder, up your mileage, do more intense speed work, do specific training? These are all good ideas. I'm kind of asking you to think about this. Would it be even more impactful than that? Would it be to change your nutrition, your recovery, your body composition? Just think about that. But what's the fastest way? If you ran a marathon last week or last month and you're doing another one and you want to improve, well, that's not really enough time to get a huge training effect. Maybe if you have a whole season or a year or two, you can do that. But in a short period of time, maybe it's not the training, but it is, you guessed it, your pacing. Now, if you look at what runners across an entire field do in a marathon, and there was a great breakdown of this that I watched on a video where there was a guy who tries to catch marathon cheaters. And the way he does it is he takes their chip times across all of the timing mats, and he looks for segments of a race where a runner averaged a really fast time, maybe even like a world record pace. They're running 10-minute miles and then they run 4:20 miles and then they run 10-minute miles, and it's kind of fishy, right? So there's what the average runner does, there's what the elite runners do, and there's what Kiptum did. Here's the difference. When you look at elite runners, they're running pretty even across the board, meaning that they start in the middle and the finish are roughly even paces. Now, there are going to be fluctuations on any given mile, of course, and maybe there's a little hill here or there. Okay, fair enough. But if we look at the first half and the second half, the elevation profiles probably aren't that different if we're taking a huge split, like a half marathon. And what we see is that the elite field tend to run pretty even pacing. That's how they run fast, because they want to win. They also have to keep up with the pack, cover surges, things like that. But it's pretty even on a mile-to-mile basis, and especially first half, second half is pretty even. That's what elites do. What did Kelvin Kiptum do? Well, he ran pretty even, and then negative split. And he ran, I believe he ran the fastest 10K in any marathon ever when he set a world record. And it was on the back half. It was almost his last 10K. It was, in the latter portion of the race. So he ran a negative split. He picked it up at the end. So the graph might be his pace was here and then he got faster. The pace was faster and he set a world record. Pretty cool. What do most runners do? Well, you guessed it, they positive split. So they go out too fast, or the graph would be down here the way I'm doing this with my hand. They go out too fast and then they slow down a little bit, maybe not at mile 2 or even mile 6 or even mile 10, but they start slowing down, maybe mile 8 to 15, it starts to slow a little bit, and then it slows even more past the 16-mile mark or 18-mile mark, and certainly the 20-mile mark. So have you ever experienced that, hitting the wall? I think it's something that a lot of marathoners can relate to. And it essentially means that you're slowing down significantly on the latter portion of your race. There's a number of reasons for that, which go beyond the scope of this video. We're talking about pacing here, not why you bonk. But most runners, virtually all, not literally all, but like the vast majority, like well over 90%, in a big city marathon, they're going to positive split. It's just kind of what happens, but it doesn't have to. So that's the difference between not even like a novice runner, but even a well-experienced runner, such as yourself or myself. I've positive split. I just positive split at this race here. But let's also look at another example, and that is Eliud Kipchoge. So before Kiptum broke the world record this year, God rest, he's since passed on. But right before that, not long before that, Eliud Kipchoge broke his own world record. And what did he do? Did he negative split? No, he actually positive split. So even pacing, negative split, positive split. What should we do? We see Kiptum negative split. We see Kipchoge positive split. And both set a world record. Yes, but they didn't negative or positive split by that much. I'm going to give you a little rule that you can use and a calculation you can use to see if you're going out too fast or if you're going out too slow. Because of course you could negative split if you sandbagged it the first half and you walked and then you just ran the last half. You would negative split, but you would leave so much on the table that it wasn't a good strategy. Likewise, even if you positive split like Kipchoge did, but it wasn't by a massive margin, he didn't blow up, he didn't hit the wall and get reduced to double his pace or something like that. It was a small positive split and it resulted in a win in a world record. So you can do both, but the differential isn't that much. So what is that differential? And the answer is about 2%. So it doesn't matter if you run even, positive, or negative, doesn't matter as long as the first half and the second half are not different by more than about 2%. So let's look at what that means. If you ran the first half 2% slower and the second half 2% faster, well, you negative split, but you only negative split by a little bit, maybe 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, not much more than that. If you went the other way around and your first half was too fast, but it was only 2% faster than you averaged, you can make an argument that you went out a little bit too fast, but we don't need to split hairs here. It's like you didn't blow up. You only slowed down a tiny bit, 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, even 3 minutes. It's not the end of the world. You left a little something on the table, but we always do. You can always be better, right? So I wouldn't kick yourself if you positive split, but if you positive split by 5% or 10%, that kind of means you went out too fast. Likewise, if you negative split by 5%, 10%, or imagine like 20%, like a huge difference at the end, it means you probably could have gone out a little tiny bit faster and your finish time might have been a little bit faster. So that's what your first takeaway for you is that you may want to go back and look at your last marathon times and get your splits for each mile. And we're going to do a little worksheet here together so that I'll show you how I calculate this, but it's not that difficult, right? Depending on the GPS that you use, you can just go into your data. Here's the easiest way to do it is look at your finish time, but look at what your GPS told you was your finish distance, because it's not going to be 26.2. Probably not. Your GPS will record a slightly different distance because there's a margin of error. Maybe it says 26.5. So if that's the case, you want to go by your GPS data. You can also use, if you have the actual split from the race, you can use that too, but maybe you don't. So you go into your GPS data, you look at your total time and total distance, probably not 26.2, use the actual distance. You take that time. Now we'll divide it by 2. And that's what an even pace would look like. Then you want to go back and look, if your GPS will tell you, now Koros will tell me this, if I hover my finger over the race, I can look at any given point what my time was, but you want to like take your finger and find the halfway point, which is not going to be 13.1. It'll be like 13.15 or 13.12, whatever the half of your total was. That's like half of your run. What's that time? Okay, so that first number you got, was my average half marathon? And you want to look at what you ran. Okay, what's the difference? And you can see if you're negative or positive splitting, and you can see by how much. So we covered, should you even split, negative split, positive split? It kind of doesn't matter as long as it's within 2%, but you want to go for as even as you can. If you're like most marathoners, not every marathoner, if you're negative splitting or if you're even splitting and you hit the finish line running as hard as you could, if you even split but you didn't go all out, well, you can run faster, of course. So as long as you gave it everything you got, you weren't off by more than 2%, you probably ran about as well as you could. So bravo, really, that is a high level, that is a mature runner who can do that. I dare say that is a world-class tactic. You may not have a world-class time, fine, neither do I, but you may have a world-class tactic on executing, making the most of what you got. Here's a little breakdown for you, and I'm gonna share with you how this plays out. So I'm going to switch my camera view here. So one of my runners here, and I won't name names or anything. This runner just ran a marathon recently in 4:33. So that was his finish time. His actual finish time. All right. So we know 4:33, and you can do this with yourself too. So what average pace is that? Well, your watch will probably tell you, but if you want to figure that out as well, you can go to, if you've read my book, right, there's bonuses. We got a training pace calculator. You can use any calculator. You can just Google this, but of course I use my own calculator. You put in your time. So here we got 4:33, and that'll tell you what your average pace was, 10:24 in this case. All right, so it'll tell you right there, 10:24. And we can also do kilometers, so 6:28 per kilometer. Okay, so what was that, 10:24? 10:24. Now let's just use a mind experiment here for a second. That means if a person wanted to run a 4:33, what should their first mile probably be? Roughly 10:24. And every mile would be 10:24. If you want to run a negative split, you maybe want to go out a little bit slower, a little bit, maybe 10:30s, 10:35s, 10:40, and then pick it up later. We'll come back to the reason why that is in just a second here. But the half marathon split, what was your half marathon split? You would calculate what your half split was. Okay, then you want to know if you ran greater than or less than 2%. difference. Okay, so first, that's what you want to do. But here's how I do it. Marathon pacing. We actually looked at this runner's mile by mile split. So we know 10:24. So let's just take a look. Mile 1 was 9:38. It's too fast. He's not going to keep that up, right? And then a 10, and then a 9:59, 9:58, and so on. And we took all of his splits. The way I evaluate this is I look at how much of a differential was there on every mile. So I just take the difference between a 9:38 and a 10:24. Well, the difference is 46 seconds. 9:59. Okay, so you take the differential between each of the miles you actually ran and what the average was. So in this case, all of these first miles were too fast. I don't see any 10:24s or slower. Do you? No. They're all faster than race pace. So all of these splits were plus this amount. Now you might have minus this amount too if you did a single mile that was slower. That's fine. So you would just put, instead of, these are all positive numbers. For one that was slower, you would just put a negative, right? So we have positives and negatives, and then you're going to add them up. And we had the first half. Now I'm just going off of the first 26 miles. I'm not counting 26.2. So first 13 miles, I just calculate those. That's it. That's all you need to do. That was 525 seconds faster than he would have been if he paced it average. So that's about 8 minutes and 45 seconds, or about 40 seconds per mile on average, faster than he averaged. So what do you think is going to happen? If he kept that going, he's going to break this time by 17 and a half minutes. But we know he ran this time, so he went out a little fast. He went out about 8:45 too fast. So let's look how that played out. And you can look at your own splits and see where they start to slow down. So mile 14, we're getting 10:21. We're starting to slow, but it's actually still ahead of pace. And then it's still ahead of pace. It's still ahead of pace. It's still ahead of pace. 8 through 18 miles, it's still ahead of pace. Okay, then it starts to slow. Now by mile 20, it starts to slow a little bit. Then way more. Now we're losing 5 minutes. We're losing 4 minutes. Now this is quite a bit of a blow up at mile 24, but a lot of runners experience this. They hit the wall, and then you have some miles that are significantly slower than anyone previously. And it costs you, because it costs the finish time to be how much slower? Well, you can use a sort of rule for yourself, that is roughly every minute or every unit of time. So we'll just say minute, you could say second, whatever. Every minute that you go out too fast through the first half is going to cost you roughly 2 minutes on the back half. So he went out 8:45 ahead of what he averaged. That means it cost him roughly somewhere in this range. If we're conservative with our estimate, it cost him 8:45 total, because 2 minutes on the back end, it would make up for this, and then you lose that again. Or for most people, it costs them significantly more. So somewhere in this range. I can't tell you exactly what he would have run, but somewhere between 8:45 and 17:30 faster. He'd at least run this faster, and this is a little bit more aggressive, somewhere in there. Okay, so 10 minutes, 15 minutes. This means that if you want to improve your marathon time, and you've run one recently, now if you haven't run one in 4 years, you might not know what you're capable of. But let's look at the advantages to an even split and the reasons why it's hard, and then we'll be done here. So the advantages are actually twofold. Not only do you more evenly disperse your energy, and therefore you can run faster because you don't blow up, but you can maximize, or you can minimize how much you might blow up by. Now, why is that? You can get a compounded effect here. And the reason is because if you go out more conservative, not only are we manipulating your pace, you're manipulating the toll on your body. So if this runner went out at 10:24 pace, well, he can maintain that. But what if he went out a little bit slower even? It's going to be even easier. So the first thing is that I'm going to give you 2 points here. The first point is that it takes humility to do this. That's the word that I like to use, because it's humiliating to the ego, at least, to go out so slow, because everybody else is not going to do that. Virtually nobody's going to go out slower. They're going to bump. So if you go out on pace, your peers, the people who you run with or know you could beat, you're going to see Johnny, my training partner, is going to be way ahead of you. And you know that you can be with him or ahead of him. Maybe they're a slower runner than you and they're ahead of you. Maybe you see like a little old lady who's overweight, pushing a stroller, has no business running off the marathon time that you can run. You know you're going to beat her, but she's ahead of you. Oh no, we can't have that. We got to get ahead of the person who's like not even experienced in the marathon. So it's a blow to the ego to actually be behind people who you know who you could beat. And they're all going to be going fast. You're going to be getting passed early in the race. And so it kind of sucks. You feel good. You feel fresh. You feel bouncy in your legs. You want to go. It's race day. And reeling it in, it already feels like you're reeling it in by going faster. So this runner who was going out 30 seconds or so or more per mile, faster, it still felt easy through 10 miles. It still felt pretty easy even through the half marathon. It still felt easy, but he was going way fast. So what does that mean for you if you go out on pace or even a little bit slower? It means it's going to feel so ridiculously slow that you're going to hate me for saying this. You're not going to believe it. You're going to feel like, I'm going so slow. This is dumb. This is my day. I feel so good. Let me just pick it up a little bit. Careful. And that's where we blow up, because every runner feels like that. That's why every runner blows up. They feel so good at the beginning. They go too fast because it feels so easy. You're caught up in the pack. You got the race day jitters. This is your day. And we start to think, maybe this is my breakthrough day and I can smash all my goals and then some. But the problem is when you get ahead of pace psychologically, we start telling ourselves, well, now I've got a minute in the bank. Let's just hold on to that minute in the bank. And you don't want to chip away at it. What you should do if you find yourself going out too fast, you should remedy that right away and bring yourself back to average pace. But we don't want to. If you get a little time in the bank, well, we know that's kind of a mistake, but we want to hold on to it because we have it. So you continue to maintain that time in the bank. That's a mistake. We should use that time in the bank early through mile 13, 15, even 20, even 22. Use that time in the bank to get back on that pace and run even easier. Now, that's physiologic, right? But there's two. So here's the second point, and there's two reasons to this. Here's why you get a compounded benefit. The most obvious one is that you have a psychological benefit. If you're blowing up at the end of the race, people are going to be passing you. Or you're going to just, if everybody's blowing up, you might just stick with people and it's like a neck to neck, head to head kind of thing. But if you go out slower, you're going to be passing everybody in the last 5K, 10K, even 10 miles. And that's going to feel psychologically really good. That's in exchange for having the humility to go out slower. You're going to be humiliated at the beginning, but then at the end, you're going to crush everybody. You're going to be bobbing and weaving through everybody who's dying. And good for them. They're still holding on and running well, but don't let that be you. Be the one who's flying by everybody. And you see someone a quarter mile ahead of you that you normally couldn't catch, and you think it'll take me a mile or two to catch them. And then within 800 meters, you catch them and you're like, wow, I'm really flying. And then your miles get faster and faster. And the beauty of this is that this is how you burn it down and run really fast at the end. You can keep pressing into this pace. This is the beauty of a negative split. A negative split is really even pacing, where at the very end, you have something extra in the tank and you burn it up then. Maybe you wait until the last 800 meters to burn it up. But here's the key. If you went out slow enough and you feel really good at mile 20, you can pick it up just a little bit at mile 20. And if that is like hard, you just maintain it. But if it's still easy, you pick it up more at mile 22. And if you still feel good with 5K to go, you pick it up even more. And if you still feel good with a mile to go, you start sprinting. And if you still feel good with 800 to go, you sprint even faster. And if you still feel good with 100 meters to go, you're that guy or gal or person who sprints across that line, pumping their fist, and everybody's going crazy. And you feel like $1 million. And then you start asking yourself, oh my God, I feel this good. How much faster can I run if I went out just a little bit, tiny bit faster? And that's a good feeling to have. It's better than asking yourself, how much faster could I go but let that if be if I went a little bit more aggressive rather than if I didn't blow up. And then finally, the physiologic benefit here. This is where it compounds. You're going to be taking in some calories in your race, yeah? Everybody does in a marathon. You should, because you're going to run. So here's two graphs for you. This is your glycogen here, and this is your fat over here. You have enough fat to last forever. You can run essentially forever. Your glycogen, though, is going to get depleted. And then when it gets critically low, that's when a bonk happens. Your brain says, uh-oh, we're low on this critical fuel, better shift to fat metabolism. And fat metabolism takes 4 times as much energy per molecule of fat to metabolize. So you have to breathe more in a given time, in a given distance. And so you have to slow down. Okay, that's essentially what bonking is. But when you go out slower, physiologically, 2 things happen. Number 1 is you burn less glycogen early on and you burn more fat. When you're just sitting here listening to this, chilling out at home, you're burning a lot more fat than you are glycogen, mostly fat. When you go out for a walk, you burn a tiny bit of glycogen, but still mostly fat. When you go for a run, it starts to even out. When you go run fast, you're burning more glycogen, less fat. When you're sprinting, it's like all glucose and glycogen, very little fat. So it shifts the faster you go. So if you go even slower at the beginning, you're actually conserving your glycogen so that you bonk later in the race. Just by running even, you're going to run the same time. So this 4:33 marathoner, if this person paced it for a 4:33 even, he would guarantee run faster. He would be conserving more glycogen earlier on and just burning a higher percentage of fat. Therefore, glycogen will last longer and there will be less of a bonk at the end, even if he still bonks. So that's one of the reasons. Second is when you eat or drink, when you take in calories, it takes energy to use those calories. You have to put the calories in your stomach, then your small intestine, and mobilize it through insulin, through your blood, and deliver it to the muscles, et cetera, et cetera. It takes time, it takes energy. If you're going slower, your cost of digestion is less. When you're really fatigued and you're totally spent at the end of a race, if you were to try to take in a gel, you can't even digest it. Your body is on red alert, all systems go, and your body doesn't want to digest anything. You're demanding this high output. And so your body will shut down digestion just to keep you running and keep you alive and keep your brain functioning. That's why at the end of a race, if you notice sometimes you don't want a gel anymore, you need the calories, you're starting to bonk, but the idea of having one more goo just is so gross. You're like, please, no more goos ever again. You just don't want to take it. That's your body telling you, stop feeding me. We can't afford to put energy into that digestion. But when you eat at the beginning of the race and you're going slower, remember the cost on your body is how hard your body's working. So if you're going slower, because we didn't go out too fast, you have more energy available to be able to take in those calories and digest them. So that's the compounded effect, is that not only do you conserve your energy, not only do you burn more fat and conserve glycogen for later so that you bonk less or don't bonk at all, but also you can take in and actually utilize more calories earlier in the race without gastrointestinal distress. There is a myth, and it makes sense on first glance, and that is I'm scared to go out too slow at my average pace or eat, God forbid, slower than my average pace. What if I get to the end of the race and it was too easy and I feel like I left something in the tank? I'm not going to be happy with myself. I want to give this everything I got. I've been training for a long time. And so the fear is that if we go out slow, we're just going to sandbag the whole race and we're not going to perform like we want. But that's not true, because the assumption there is that if you're going out at a slower pace than you actually could maintain, why would you maintain that pace all the way through the finish? You see the finish line coming and you're like, I feel so good, I could sprint, but I'm not gonna because I have to keep it slow at this average pace. No, of course not. You're gonna pick it up and sprint. And you can just backtrack that. Maybe you don't sprint in the last 100 meters, maybe you pick it up in the last mile or the last 5K or 10K. The point is, when you conserve at the beginning, it's not gonna cost you on the back end because you can always pick it up. So I suggest that you get to at least the halfway point feeling like it was a cakewalk. If you get to the halfway and you're struggling already, you went out way too fast. You should probably be able to make it to at least 16 miles, if not 20 or beyond, 22, 23. And even this particular runner who I shared with you, he started blowing up not until mile 24. So it's pretty good, but then he really blew up. But that's mile 24, for goodness sake. Thank goodness he didn't go out even faster because he would have tanked even more. I'll leave you with that. I hope that was useful for you. I encourage you to do these calculations. If you've run a race recently, just get an idea of how fast or how slow you are going in the first half versus the second half. Figure out what the difference is. For every minute you went out maybe too fast in the first half, add 2 minutes to the back half. So take that time differential and take your total time and add 2 of those to it. So in this case, it's about 15 to 17 minutes. That's how much faster you could go without any additional training, without any improvement in your diet, without any mindset shifts, without any better weather, without any high-tech shoes, none of that. Throw it all in the garbage, because the fastest way to improve your time is to just simply pace it in an elite way. It's not hard to do, but it's very simple, right? But it does take, let's review real quick, it does take humility to go out slow at the beginning, and it does take that you sort of know what you could run. Thank you so much if you're one of our readers who's got the book and left us an awesome review. But if you haven't yet, go ahead and pick up your copy, Run Elite. It's on Amazon right now. It's on Audible right now. Train and think like the greatest runners of all time. If it weren't for you guys, we wouldn't have even made this. So take care, and thank you for making it a success.